Is a social media post by Reuters journalist Phil Stewart right here, as he says Iran has rejected new peace talks with the United States. Its state news agency reported on Sunday, hours after U.S. President Donald Trump said he was sending envoys to Pakistan for talks and would strike Iran unless it accepted his terms. So Iran publicly stating that they are rejecting those new peace talks with the United States. A live look here at the White House as we continue to follow all of these breaking news developments. This, as President Trump had said that U.S. negotiators will head to Pakistan tomorrow for another round of talks with Iran. This, as the ceasefire between the United States and Iran is set to expire by Wednesday. Iran previously not confirming those talks and now stating that they will not happen. The White House, though, saying that the delegation to Pakistan includes envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And in Pakistan, authorities have already begun tightening security in Islamabad. A regional official involved with the effort said mediators were finalizing preparations and U.S. advanced security teams were already on the ground. Now, this comes as shipping through the Strait of Hormuz was at a standstill on Sunday after Iran reasserted control over the strategic waterway that is key to global energy supply. This days before the ceasefire with the United States was set to expire. So we continue to follow all of the breaking news developments right here on Live Now from Fox. And to speak more on this, I do want to bring in Blaise Misztal with JINSA to talk more on these breaking news developments. And Blaise, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Good afternoon, Stephanie. It's good to be with you again.
So Iran now coming out and saying that they will not engage in peace talks with the United States. This, as President Trump says he's already going to be sending negotiators to Pakistan tomorrow. What do you make of this latest development?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that it's really unclear what is happening. There are obviously reports that the talks might not be happening, that Iran isn't sending envoys. We have threats from both sides of what will happen if a deal is not struck. But there's also a lot of reporting saying that perhaps there's actually been progress being made behind the scenes on a deal, and President Trump has seemed to suggest as much in some of his tweets throughout the last week. So what the actual status here is not very transparent. But if we just take things at face value, then it definitely seems like the United States and Iran are playing a game of chicken. Each side is trying to determine which one is going to flinch first. That is to say, which one is more determined, more interested in getting a deal, and which one is more willing to let the current ceasefire lapse this coming Wednesday and is ready or willing to go back to war. And I think this is just the latest attempt by Iran to see if President Trump will flinch, to see if they have the stronger hand here. And if that's what they're doing, then I think that, unfortunately, that's tied very directly to what we saw at the end of last week with the announcement of the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, or specifically Lebanese Hezbollah. If you remember 10 days ago when President Trump announced the ceasefire with Iran, there was a lot of disagreements about whether the Lebanese front was part of that ceasefire. Iran claimed it was. The United States and Israel claimed it wasn't. And then what we heard was that Iran made further talks conditioned further talks on that ceasefire in Lebanon happening. And it seems like the United States and Israel gave into that, agreed to that ceasefire. And that convinced Iran that it has the upper hand, that it can dictate terms here, that it can tell the United States and Israel what to do. And so now it's using that leverage. It's using what it thinks is that stronger position to once again sort of claim it's not interested in a deal, to try to get more concessions, to try to get President Trump to give up more things for them. And I think it's going to be very important for the United States to make clear here to Iran that if it doesn't come to the negotiating table, if there is no deal, then that the ceasefire is going to lapse and the war will restart on Wednesday.
And I do want to ask you, where we stand now, 8 weeks into a war that President Trump had initially stated would likely last between 4 to 6 weeks. How would you characterize the Iran war in terms of success?
Yeah, I think this has largely been an incredibly successful war if you look at the conditions that President Trump laid out in his video on February 28th, of the very start of this war. And we heard it from General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, when President Trump announced his ceasefire 10 days ago. In terms of destroying Iran's navy, destroying its ability to produce and launch missiles and drones in order to make sure that it cannot be a threat to Israel, to the region. We have significantly decreased its capabilities over the last, now almost 8 weeks. Iran is much weaker than it was when this war started. And we have the means to continue doing that and to continue going after the other targets of that operation, including Iran's nuclear program. I think the question here is really, is President Trump going to continue to go after those objectives to make sure that he meets all of the requirements he laid out at the start of this campaign? Or given that, obviously the enemy always has a say here, and Iran has been able to inflict economic pain, particularly through its targeting of ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, is that going to be a more powerful impact, causing President Trump to try to seek a deal sooner? But I would say the campaign has been effective so far. The United States has the upper hand. It has the means to reopen the Strait of Hormuz if it wants to. It now has a stranglehold on Iran's economy with the blockade. This is a winning hand, and the United States should continue to play it. And if it does, then hopefully not only will we have these operational successes, but in the medium to short term, we could actually see this regime fall as well, which was never the goal of the operation, but was always part of the hope. As President Trump said, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, that we'd be putting the fate of the country back into the Iranians' hands, that they wouldn't have to be scared of this regime anymore. And when this campaign ends, hopefully that'll be the case. The regime will be weakened militarily, it will be weakened economically, and it'll be up to the Iranian people whether they seize that destiny or not.
Blaise, there have been some critics asking President Trump to focus more on domestic issues. From your perspective, does the Iran war align with Make America Great Again? And if so, how?
I think it absolutely does in a couple of fundamental ways. I think first and foremost, we have seen that the United States keeps getting dragged back into Middle Eastern wars because countries, terrorists, keep targeting us, keep trying to kill Americans, keep trying to injure or attack our partners, and ultimately impact the price of oil. If we just look at what Iran has done to the Strait of Hormuz over the past couple of weeks, the idea that if we left them alone, that they wouldn't ever develop nuclear weapons, that they wouldn't ever attack another country again like they did against Israel after October 7th, that they wouldn't exercise that power of the Strait of Hormuz, just doesn't add up. That's what they've done over the last 47 years. They would do it again. And so what we're going through now would happen at some point again in the future, and we'd have to go back and we'd have to start a war to deal with it once again. So this is first and foremost removing what has been a long-term thorn in America's side, and is going to make America and our partners safer over the long term, and remove the need to have to go back to the Middle East to fight more wars. If we see this war through to the end, it could finally change the tide in the Middle East and hopefully make it a place that is not going to be a place that we have to hear about in the news every day for the next 25 years as we have for the last quarter century. That is the goal here, to not have to go back to the Middle East. But every time that we have picked up stakes, declared victory too early, and tried to turn our backs, we've ended up having to go back. So let's not make that same mistake again. And secondly, this is part of a global fight as well. We have to realize that Iran is part of a partnership, part of an axis with China and Russia. Iran was arming the Russians in their war against Ukraine. Iran was sending oil and gold to help support Venezuela. China was helping Iran build its missiles. This is all part of a big global coalition that is trying to undermine the United States. And every time we have shown weakness to any member of this coalition, they have acted against us. When we withdrew from Afghanistan under President Biden so precipitously, that encouraged Russia to go and attack Ukraine. When President Obama did not enforce the red line against Syria in 2013, that invited Russia to attack in Syria and expanded that war, and invited Iran to expand that war, and led to the conditions that allowed October 7th to happen, but also contributed to the rise of ISIS and the United States having to go back in and fight that war. So every time we turn our backs on one of these axis of resistance members, we end up weakening our position and strengthening them. And now is our chance to turn the tables. By finishing this war, we're not only going to weaken Iran, we're going to weaken that chain between Russia and China and Iran and North Korea and Venezuela, like we did with the capture of President Maduro. Not only that, but we're going to send a message that America is the strongest, that countries want to be safe and secure and prosperous. They should align with us, not with Beijing or Moscow. And so I think over the long term, seeing this war through to its end is actually going to make us stronger, safer, more prosperous, and less likely to have to go out and fight these wars in the future.
And Blaise, you actually just answered the next question that I had, because I was going to ask you what the stance by President Trump and his administration what signal does this send to other U.S. adversaries? You were speaking about Russia and China as well, and the roles that they have within the war. I also want to ask you this, because President Trump, he's been asked why even begin this war, and he said the answer is very simple: to prevent Iran from gaining nuclear capability. He's been very strategic in terms of the targets for this mission. When you take a look at the capabilities of Iran now versus prior to the war, where do those stand?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the nuclear program, we haven't seen significant changes in that since the war started, or really since Operation Midnight Hammer in June of last year. And that's because that operation dealt such heavy damage to Iran's nuclear program that following the 12-day war, which also targeted Iran's missile program, Iran made a decision, and it said rebuilding all those nuclear facilities, digging out that enriched uranium from under all that rubble would be too hard. We're better off trying to rebuild our missile program, and that's what they did. And that was the more clear and present danger on February 28th of this year. It was Iran's missile program. As we have seen, their ability to launch hundreds of missiles and drones to the UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, all across the Persian Gulf, to Israel, and even trying to target Diego Garcia thousands of miles away in the Pacific. So that was the clear and present danger. That is largely what the United States and Israel have been trying to degrade over the last several weeks. The nuclear program is in the same state as it was after the 12-day war. Iran has not really tried to rebuild it, and so there was not a need right now to target it. But as the war moves to its end phase, thinking about how we make sure that it is not possible for Iran to ever dig out from under the rubble to rebuild that nuclear program is going to have to be part of both the military and strategic thinking of the United States. And so there are hard questions here. Should the United States put in ground forces to try to dig up that enriched uranium? It seems like the decision the United States has made is that is too risky an operation. So then it becomes a matter of, is there a way to force the Iranians to give that up as part of a deal? Are there safeguards that we can put in place, gathering intelligence, continued inspections to make sure that we know that Iran never tries to rebuild that, as well as making sure that we hit any other nuclear facilities that were not hit during the 12-day war. And there seem to be at least two such facilities that Iran was building covertly, deeply underground, one at what's called Pickaxe Mountain and another at Isfahan. So before the war ends, making sure that those facilities get destroyed, whether from the air or from the ground, is also going to be very critical.
Blaise, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
And I did want to share this with you as we continue to follow all of the developments. This is from Reuters journalist Phil Stewart stating that Iran has rejected new peace talks with the United States. That's according to its state news agency. This comes hours after U.S. President Donald Trump had said he was sending envoys to Pakistan for talks and would strike Iran unless it accepted his terms. Any new developments, we will bring them to you right here on Live Now from Fox.